Welcome to the Cloud Pod, where the forecast is always cloudy. We talk weekly about all things AWS, GCP, and Azure. We are your hosts,
Justin,
Jonathan,
Ryan,
and Matthew.
Before we get into this week's news, we want to take a minute to tell you about We Are Developers World Congress, which is finally making its way to North America this September. If you spent any time in the European tech scene, you probably already know the team behind it. They've been running World Congress in Berlin for over a decade, and it's a big deal over there, pulling in more than 15,000 developers every year. Our friend Cote from Software Defined Talk is actually speaking at the Berlin event this July, and from what we've seen, these are the people who know how to put on a good developer conference. This September 23rd through 25th, they're bringing it stateside to San Jose. Organisers are expecting more than 10,000 developers with over 500 speakers across 18 different content tracks covering the entire stack, including cloud, DevOps, AI, security, software architecture, data engineering, front-end, and developer experience. If you've got a team, everyone's going to find a full schedule. It's not just sit and listen sessions. There are keynotes, workshops, masterclasses, and hands-on labs, the kind of stuff you can take back home and work on Monday. There's an impressive list of speakers, including names from Datadog, Honeycomb, Sentry, Google, LinkedIn, Stack Overflow, Netflix, Microsoft, and Stripe, plus Kelsey Hightower, Oliver Pommel, Christine Yen, Scott Hanselman, and Angie Jones. Head over to wearedevelopers.us to grab your ticket and use code DEVPOD26 for 15% off. That stacks with their group rates if you're bringing 4 or more people, and honestly, at that price, you should probably bring the whole team.
Episode 354, recorded for May 12th, 2026. US-Tirefire-1 lives up to its stellar reputation. Good evening, Matt and Jonathan. How are you guys doing?
Doing well. How you doing, Justin?
Good. We lost Ryan to illness, so he's not joining us tonight, but you're here, which is just good. So
We got 3 of us. I call it a win.
yeah, 3 out of 4 ain't bad. That's how I see it. All right, let's have some follow-up real quick. If you remember, Microsoft has been on mission to sprinkle a little Copilot on everything, even if you didn't want it. And that has received a lot of negative feedback, especially when they, broke code like Notepad that had been stable for decades by breaking it with putting Copilot into it. And so apparently Microsoft is actively removing Copilot integrations from products where adoption was low or the user feedback was negative, including gaming Copilot on Xbox and several Windows 11 entry points in Photos, Widgets, and Notepads. As I mentioned, this is everywhere. Executive Jacob Andro publicly acknowledged the need to cut underperforming Copilots for deleting the post, signaling an internal shift towards consolidation under a single combined consumer and enterprise Copilot organization. The financial case for trimming Copilot is direct. Microsoft noted during its most recent earnings that running certain Copilots was compressing margins, particularly free integrations in Windows where no additional revenue offsets the inference cost. I mean, but if it's not doing anything and no one's using it, how much inference is there really? So it's a little bit of a spin job, I think, for Microsoft in this one. But, I think it's really about users hating the fact that Copilot was infecting things like notepads and widgets, et cetera. I think Photos sort of make sense for Copilot. Like, hey, remove someone from this photo. Like, that's a great AI use case. Adobe's making a lot of money on that use case. So that one's a little weird to me, but the other ones all make sense. Gaming Copilot and Xbox made no sense. Like, a lot of them were just weird vanity projects.
Yeah, I assume it's the cost of the developers more than the cost of usage, or anybody just plays with it. Like, there's a fee somewhere behind the scenes for development, maintenance, QA, etc. If they did QA.
I think it's the invasive nature of the whole thing, because the EULA for Copilot, someone's going to click right through it and not realize that they're trained, that everything they type in their app is now being sent to Copilot and used for training. And all of a sudden they added a bunch of apps that everyone uses every day, like Notepad. And I think it's quite an invasion of privacy. And I love AI and using AI, but having it slammed in my face by Microsoft, having it enabled by default and having it take screenshots and having it do all those things without explicitly opting in is what I'm unhappy about. So, yeah. I do think they probably stretched a bit too far with the deployment of Copilot. Like, if you're on the Xbox, surely you want to be playing games.
Yeah, it seems like something you would maybe want to do on your Xbox is play games versus talk to Copilot. I don't even know what that feature did. Like, and what was the interface to it on an Xbox? Did you talk to it? Like, I don't really even know how you used it.
No idea. I mean, it's such a can of worms though, because you're going to have kids on there, and the user's going to be no under 13s. I got a funny story about that. My Samsung fridge updated overnight. When I got it this morning, I have to re-accept the EULA on that thing. And it's like, don't let anyone under 13 use this device. I'm like, but it's my refrigerator. What am I supposed to do? Like,
someone didn't tell the lawyer what the purpose of this agreement was for.
yeah.
We just need an agreement, click-through agreement. Okay.
But why does your refrigerator need to be smart? And why does it need to be connected to the I still have questions about that.
Because that way they can spy on you and they can sell imagery of all your food inside your fridge to know what ads to sell to you. That's why they need that data. Just like they record everything that's happening on your TV. That's why you shouldn't connect your TV to the internet either.
That's why I have an IoT network that blocks everything.
Mm-hmm. Well, it's been a bad week for security, unfortunately. Linux, first of all, hit its second severe vulnerability in as many weeks. We talked about one last week. This week, the second one came up with a dirty frag, allowing low-privileged users to gain root access across virtually all distributions. The one last week was the left copy defect, I think we talked about. The exploit is particularly concerning because it is a deterministic, stealthy, and causes no crashes, making it difficult to detect while working reliably across different environments, including shared servers and virtual machines. Proof of concept code was leaked publicly before most distributions had incorporated kernel patches, fairly turning this into a 0-day and accelerating real-world exploitation risk. Microsoft has already observed signs of active experimentation in the wild. Cloud and shared hosting environments faced elevated exposure since the attack is well suited to multi-tenant scenarios where untrusted users share underlying infrastructure. And I guess I'm also now repatching the cloud pod again. I did it last week for left copy, and now I guess I'm doing it for this as well.
Yeah, it's time for no operating system.
Yes, move off of Linux to something that's not going to be more secure. I doubt that. So.
Yeah, no, I don't know. Every time these recent bugs, these very deep kernel bugs, which allow root access, the skeptic in me thinks they may have been placed there deliberately. Sometimes.
Mm-hmm. I mean, some of them are, also, you have to have physical access. You have to have all these other things perfectly right. I mean, like they're bad, but they're also not always exploitable from external aspect unless the ports are open in a certain way. And if you're following good hygiene, they shouldn't be. So it's, some of them you have to read the fine print of like, how do you actually exploit this issue?
I think the easiest way to exploit it though is supply chain attacks, because if you do an APT update or something and there's an open source package that's been packaged up into somebody's Ubuntu repo, whenever those things run, they can run shell scripts, they can run arbitrary code when you do the update, and they're to be fair, they're already running as root at that point anyway, so it's not quite as bad. But
I mean, it's funny you mention supply chain though, because our next story, which is also security related, is the best supply chain attack I've seen yet. So if you are using NPM, you are having a bad week, as the TanStack NPM packages were hit by Mini Shai Hulud hacking group. And they hacked it in probably the most creative way I've seen in a long time. So they created a legitimate PR or pull request against a public project. And basically the PR ran because that's what their GitHub repo was set up to do. They then captured the cache key from the run and sent it back to themselves, and then used the cache key to inject bad cache packages into the main pipeline. So when the next real pipeline ran, it grabbed the hacked, compromised cached objects, put them into the binary, and then shipped that to the world. And this is now spreading all over the place. It was first TanStack, and it's pretty wide distribution at this point. If you look this up, you'll find that it's impacted all kinds of places, including Mistral, AI, UiPath, and others. So this is a bad one. And brilliant, though. Bravo for the creativity of this one. I had not thought of that attack vector before. And GitHub Actions cache poisoning, definitely something to now be a little bit more concerned about. I expect we'll see some GitHub action requirements and things that we want to do. Like, I don't know why the cache would even be accessible from outside of the GitHub action, or like there'd be some type of signature verification required. I don't know, something that I would have thought would have been there, but apparently not.
Well, all your GitHub workers are public, so and all the caches are hitting public endpoints. So that's why, unless you have your GitHub locked down to IP addresses. Yeah. So that part makes sense that it's public. I mean, you were right. I did refrain myself because I didn't read this article before, and I was listening to it as you were reading it. That is a very impressive way to attack something like this. I would not have thought of that, and maybe that's why I'm not a black hat hacker out in the world doing these things, but that is an impressive way to break into things, and that will definitely spread very fast.
And if you want the icing on the cake of this one, to remediate this, you have to delete the GitHub token. It has to be revoked. Well, when you do that, they built a deadman switch into it that RMRFs your hard drive when the GitHub token is revoked. So you have to disable the monitor service before rotating a credential, or you risk your home directory being basically destroyed.
Nice.
So a little extra added insult. But yeah, that's basically what we saw. This hit on the 11th, which I think was Monday. And basically we saw TanStack, sending out all kinds of things. And then other NPM packages that relied on TanStack got compromised because this thing just propagated like a worm across everybody's repos. And so one of the things that people were suggesting, which I was curious what your guys' thoughts were, they're saying like you should delay installing any NPM package for 7 days. And while I see the thought process people are having is like, well, the idea is someone else will detect that this is bad and they'll fix it before it gets downloaded by me and put into my code. But I'm also like, but you're exposing yourself to 0 days and to all kinds of other things that are being patched all the time. And so like, is it worth waiting 7 days to make sure the package got properly vetted? And then also if everyone does 7 days and no one's actually vetting it, so you just delay the discovery of the thing. So like, to me, it felt like it's a cute idea, but not really security. So I don't know what your guys' thought was.
I mean, CrowdStrike came out with the same thing though. You could delay your agent upgrades by 1, 2, or 3 agent versions behind.
Well, it was specifically their detection, but it wasn't the packages or the signature files you could do that. It's literally like kernel things that you were touching that you could delay the kernel changes.
No, you could do it for everything over time.
Oh, did they add that? Okay.
They rolled it out to more things over time. And people say that about Windows updates too. We don't push it out the first day. We wait a week before we roll it out because we don't want things to crash. It's always, that double-edged sword, like you're saying. Do I fix things or faster and potentially risk something like this being in there, or do you not? And I think the real answer is have a process for these things. If you are maintaining systems or builds or anything else like that, you need to be able to press a button and get your pipeline to deploy and get a new version of everything really fast. And that's, I think that's the real answer, is building a true CI/CD pipeline, not, hey, we have this thing, and saying, well, we're just not going to do this for a week, because that's not going to help you. If anything, it's going to hurt you more, I feel like.
It's really relevant to our conversation I was having this week with security around building images for machines, VMs. And, the typical way that things go is you build image and it gets scanned, and then somebody from security looks at the results and says yes or no. But, occasionally there's a new vulnerability that's found. And, typically it's like, okay, well, we won't release this image because there's a new vulnerability in it. But I was like, well, what about if the vulnerability is affecting something which has been around for 5 years? Every image we have now in the org is now got this vulnerability. Are we going to not release a new image because it still has the same vulnerability that everything else has, and then sacrifice all the other patches that would have been applied anyway? So I think these problems are forcing people to rethink sort of the not black and whiteness of security anymore.
But also, like we were talking about in the other article, it's okay, how risky is this actual attack? If I have to already be on the system as a user, okay, yes. In order to, then I can escalate my permissions to root. Yes, it is bad because it is a privileged escalation attack, but they've already compromised 3 other things to get into my environment. So at that point, it's daisy chaining multiple attacks together to get there. So I also think with any vulnerability, you have to look at it and look at your specific environment, not just say, oh my God, this is a 9, on the CVE score, but CVSS score, sorry. But actually understand what the vulnerabilities are that you're looking at, and really how they affect your environment more than anything.
Mm-hmm. And that's why it takes a lot of context. So I think we talked about it several times on the show, that context is a lot of everything in vulnerabilities. So it's all about, what are my defenses in depth? What are the things? And so something that's potentially a high risk vulnerability, if it's on my storage controller behind 6 firewalls, it's probably not as much of a high risk for us unless they get through all these other layers. And I have a bigger problem if they got through all those layers to get here to exploit that.
Right.
And so, but again, like, that's the thing, a lot of the tools for vulnerabilities don't really do a good job of, is understanding the context of the environment the system's running in to then see what the mitigating controls are. I keep hoping with AI that maybe some security teams start really getting that capability, because AI can help figure out dependencies and help figure out mitigation layers a lot easier than I think a security team who wasn't really maybe in the process could have. So I'm hoping maybe some security teams start building that out in their products. That'd be great.
Yep.
Well, US East 1 experienced a power loss event this week, causing EC2 instance impairment, continuing the region's well-documented history of outages that have made it a cautionary tale for architects who skip multi-region or multi-AZ design. This incident reinforces why AWS best practices around availability zone distribution exist in the first place. I mean, I prefer the best practice of don't put things in US East 1 as first. That's the first one I would start with. Just US East 2 is right. It's right there. It's just one number away. US East 2.
And you're defaulted to it now. It defaults
I think
to
so.
not one.
Yeah. For teams still running single AZ deployments in US East 1, this is a practical reminder to review your architecture decisions around auto-scaling groups, RDS multi-AZ, and RevD3 health checks as a baseline for your resiliency. There's not a lot of specifics around what happened specifically. I expect there will be a RCA coming, which we'll follow up on next week. But yeah, it was a bad week. Power loss, bad's all bad. So there you go.
I thought I heard it was heat related. Unexpected heating and AC gave in, and then stuff overheated. Was that different?
Yeah, no, this is that one. There's something with the coolers, or environmental issue occurred that I don't have all the details of. But yeah, they said it was basically they're unable to get additional cooling system capacity online in time before things started shutting down, which means that a cooler failed, is my guess. But I would have expected more redundancy there. But maybe AI is pushing their data centers to not have to be running on thin ice. So
I also feel like if you have a cloud architect at your company that's recommending you don't do multi-AZ, just in general, you should probably fire the person. Like, it comes down
to cost, though. I mean, some companies are very cost averse.
But multi-AZ, if you have multiple servers already doing the same thing, and didn't they get rid of the cross? It's Azure that got rid of the cross-zonal traffic, but did AWS, or is there still cross AZ traffic?
I don't think they ever fixed that issue. I think they still charge for cross AZ traffic.
If you're getting hit with that, but if you're running production, you really should at least be in multiple zones. I get DR and what level of DR you want to do, and et cetera, because I still say most of the time, pending you're in UAE, AWS will get it up faster than you will be able to probably implement in your full DR strategy. But you really got to at least be in multi-AZs.
Yeah, I was surprised when Coinbase went down. I was like, really?
There was a lot of people that went down.
I mean, multi-AZ, you can still go down, though, even if there's multi-AZ. I mean, it depends if the zone goes down. If you've got three nodes in the database cluster and the master goes down, then you're still left with two who might not know what's going on.
But it was like there was a couple other companies, too, that I was like kind of surprised.
Yeah, so it impacted Redshift clusters. It impacted Kafka and managed streaming for Kafka. EBS volumes were impaired. I mean, I'm just looking at their actual actual incident right now. I don't see an RCA yet, but they said IoT Core, Elastic Load Balancing, SageMaker, NAT gateways, streaming for Kafka, ElastiCache, OpenSearch, Kubernetes, and Redshift were all impacted in that region. And it was specifically US East 1-AZ4, which is one of the newer ones. So that's kind of interesting too. But yeah,
the one they put all the GPUs in.
I was going to say probably because that's where they put all the GPUs. Yeah. So we'll keep an eye out for that RCA. I'm sure it'll be coming soon. AI is how machine learning makes money. And this week, we're talking about Anthropic, which has launched several updates to Claude managed agents, including Dreaming in research preview, plus Outcomes, multi-agent orchestration, and webhooks in public beta. Dreaming is a scheduled process that reviews past agent sessions to extract patterns, refine memory stores, and enable agents to self-improve between sessions without human intervention. The Outcome features lets developers write a rubric for success, and then a separate grader evaluates agent output in its own context window to avoid being influenced by the agent's reasoning. Multi-agent orchestration allows a lead agent to break complex jobs into parallel work streams delegated to special subagents, each with its own model, prompt, and tool. All events are persistent and traceable through the cloud console. Real-world results from early adopters show measurable outcomes, with Harvey showing roughly 6x improvement in completion rates using Dreaming for legal drafting workflows, and WiseDocs reporting a 50% faster document review cycle using Outcomes to enforce quality standards. The combinations of memory, Dreaming, and multi-agent orchestration represents a shift towards agents that accumulate institutional knowledge over time. Yes, they do.
Yeah, it's a great feature. I built a retrospective agent a while ago before Dreaming was around, and it's probably nowhere near as good as the new Dreaming thing. But that went back through and looked at chunks of things, especially if I had to correct it, to figure out, did I say something wrong earlier in the chat? Is it, what led to the divergence from the intent in a way? So I guess this is an automated way of doing the same thing, and probably covers a wider range of problems than I ever built.
Yeah, your version on steroids across multiple agents, kind of cool.
Yeah. Even the insights thing, though, it's the first time I ran it a couple of days ago, and there's some really interesting insights in there. And I thought, I had not thought of doing that.
Yeah. Well, that was when I was telling you about that tool. I was like, yeah, Insights is cool because it basically analyzes your last 30 days of sessions and, points out where you commonly make mistakes, or where, there's things that you need to think about that are like, maybe you need to do more planning before you go into coding, or like one of the things I stop the agent midstream a lot of times. I see it going off path. And so it's like, well, if you had a better plan up front, you wouldn't have to stop it midway. And I'm like, well, true, but I didn't know until I saw it do the thing, and I was like, oh no, that's bad. So that's kind of how that happens. But it's also good too, because like a lot of things around, like I would manually run git commit and PR, and then or I would ask it to run the tests and things like that. And so like, it's like, well, why don't you just create those with hooks? I'm like, I didn't know about doing that with a hook, or I didn't know I should use that with a skill. That's a great idea. And so over time, I run it about once a month, and it gives me insights. And I wish that you could kind of focus it to specific repos. So you could then, say like, I only want to know the insights for this repo, because this repo is Python and that repo is something else, and this repo is something else. And so it kind of mixes up some of that together, because it's all sessions over 30 days, but it's still pretty nice. So definitely check that out if you haven't checked out Insights. But this does remind me that, my favorite Westworld quote, these violent delights have violent ends with the dreaming. So, be careful. Things can go bad. Robert Ford can get shot in the back of the head. So. And then, of course, they also launched the improvement that I've been waiting for. So I've been a big fan of Anthropic experimental agents. And I think even on this show, I talked about, I had an itch to maybe potentially build a better way to like view across agents, because it was a little bit opaque. And this is an experimental feature, but they have now given me the ability of agent views in Claude Code. This is in Research Review Pro, Max Team, Enterprise, and API Plan users. And it provides a unified CLI interface for managing multiple Claude code sessions simultaneously, accessible via the Claude Agents command or the left arrow key for any session. The feature addresses a practical pain point for developers running parallel AI coding sessions, replace the need to juggle multiple terminal tabs or tmux grids. Each session row displays status, last response content, and interaction timestamps at a glance. The two key commands, extend session manager /BG, moves an existing session to the background, while Claude -BG task launches a new session directly in the background without occupying the foreground terminal. Early use cases include dispatching multiple coding tasks in parallel and reviewing the resulting pull requests from a single list, managing long-running looping jobs like PR monitors, with next run times visible in the agent list, and quickly spinning up related tasks or code-based questions. For teams and organizations, this tool supports scaling concurrent AI-assisted development workflows. So overall, this is nice. It's still not exactly everything I want, but it scratches like 80% of what I wanted.
That's weird. I really rarely review the code until after the tests have passed. So I'm happy to let it go off and do its own thing, and then check it at the end. If it passes the test, then I'll do the sort of the code smell checks and various other things.
Well, the nice thing about doing this in agents is you can have multiple agents working on different parts of the code base, and then as they complete, you can review them. It's really about getting parallelization. That's what I like it for. It's not really so much that I'm reviewing it real time or doing anything else, but it's really about, I've got 5 features I want to do. There are 5 different components. So go do your thing.
Most evenings I've been the last thing I do before I walk away from the computer, I'm like, okay, let's review the backlog. Let's find 5 of the highest priority items which don't overlap each other in the code, as or sort of different areas of the code base. And I give it the instruction, I want to use an agent team, use what are they called? Working directories.
Work trees.
Work trees.
Yeah, work trees. That's right. Use work tree for each one. And then I'm like, okay, I'm gonna go away now. I'm gonna go to bed now for 12 hours. I'll see you in the morning. Get as much as you can done possible. Document any decisions you make, and you come back in the morning. It's just amazing to see this morning 6 huge features delivered in something I was working on, and all the tests passed. And I went back and reviewed some of the logs, and it had some real problems. It found some other bugs and fixed those. But if you give it the permission to be autonomous and you've already put it in the sort of along the right rails. It does a fantastic job, really.
Have you thought about building backlogs in something like Linear?
I built a Kanban, a really simple web Kanban thing. So I've got
same
backlog.
idea.
Yeah.
So I use Linear for this, and so basically I just start kicking out stories as I'm thinking about stuff, and so the nice thing is I can do it from Slack, I can do it from my phone, whatever. So I'll create a bunch of them, and then basically I have a loop that at 11 o'clock at night while I'm asleep, it picks up and it grabs the highest priority Linear tickets I've left, and then it tries to work on them while I'm sleeping. So similar idea, but I let it be a little bit more decisive about what it wants to do based on priority and what's in my Linear backlog, so I don't have to do all that work. And and some of them have like repetitive jobs, like, hey, I need to do a vulnerability. So once a week, it pops up and goes through all the dependabot alerts and puts patches in for those. And so it's fun.
Oh, nice. Yeah, I'm hardly ever. I did this whole analysis thing, which I'll share. Actually, maybe we should have a CloudPod open source repo or something, and put some tools there. I built a whole bunch of analysis things to look at my sessions and to look at what out of the 900,000 tokens in a window, like how much was me typing, how much was tools, how much was files. And it's really interesting. But I think the reason I've been so successful in getting what I've done is that I'm not providing a lot of instructions just manually by typing. I've already spent the time chatting and building backlog items. So I have my think about category in Kanban, and then the sort of the well thought out but not fully planned, and then prioritized for this release or next release.
Mm-hmm. So I have on my Synology, one thing I have it running now is I have it running Grafana. And so I have dashboards that are getting fed by Claude, everything it's doing. So I have that dashboard exactly of like, here's all the tools that I'm doing, and here's the percentage of time on each tool and what it's doing. So yeah, it's
that's cool.
That's how I've been doing that. It's really cool. And the nice thing is it runs on my Synology. I don't have to think about it. I had it running on my container on my laptop, but then I was like, if I didn't remember to turn on Docker, I wouldn't get the metrics. So I was like, what's running all the time? My Synology. Good, perfect. This is a perfect Grafana use case.
Yep.
And so it just sits there and it collects all this data, and I go look at it occasionally, and I get good insights from that too. And so that's pretty nice. And definitely something to do if you haven't done that. Use the OTel capabilities.
Yeah, that's pretty cool.
All right, let's move on to AWS. So first of all, the AWS MCP server is now generally available as a managed remote MCP server that gives AI agents authenticated access to all 15,000 AWS API operations using existing IAM credentials, with no additional charge beyond normal AWS resource costs. Currently available in US East North, Virginia, and Europe Frankfurt regions. A core problem this solves is AI coding agents relying on stale training data, producing overly permissive IAM policies, and defaulting to CLI commands instead of CDK or CloudFormation. I'd prefer you stick with CLI, but that's just me. The server addresses this by retrieving current AWS documentation at query time and providing skills which are curated best practices maintained by AWS service teams. The new run script tool lets agents execute sandbox Python server-side with no network access, allowing multi-step API calls to be chained in a single round trip rather than sequentially, which reduces both latency and context window consumption. And enterprise governance is addressed through IAM context keys for fine-grained access control, CloudWatch metrics under the AWS MCP namespace to separate agent calls from human calls, and full CloudTrail logging for compliance audit needs. The server works with MCP-compatible clients, including Claude Code, Kiro, Cursor, and Codex, and many, many more. I was interested in this, and then I saw CDK, and I was like, if you did Terraform, I'd be totally down with this. But
yeah, that's Terraform's been my go-to for doing things in cloud with AI.
Mm-hmm. Mine too.
It seems like just like another abstraction on top of another abstraction at this point. And we've already got the cloud configuration API that they built for Terraform to use. I would assume that this MCP talks to that. But why? Why not just teach it how to use CLI commands, or I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, so one of the things, for Bolt, who's our cloud chatbot and our mascot, he helps us our show notes, and he does a bunch of things. And so when I first built Bolt, his primary purpose was to do our show notes, because it was the part that took the most of my time every week. And the challenge, of course, was making the Google Docs. We talked about this on the show before. Google Docs' API is terrible. And so, but I worked through it. I created a test document. That's my QA document. It's still in use today as part of the test harness, that anytime I mess with the import logic, it checks against the QA, yada, yada. But every time Google releases new MCPs, I go and ask Claude, like, hey, is this the time to get rid of my custom API hodgepodge? Because if I don't have to manage it, I don't want to. And every time it comes back and goes like, this is the dumbest idea you could have possibly had. which Claude normally tells me every idea I have is brilliant. So that it tells me this is dumb is brilliant. He's like, first of all, you have so much bespoke logic in how I do the show notes. Like, you can't replace that with an MCP. And then it's like, you're going to add 300 to 400 milliseconds of latency for every call you have to do, which would slow down the whole process. And so every time I want to get rid of my custom API stuff, and that just made me realize that MCP is probably a crutch that most people will move away from over time for performance reasons back to APIs. It might be good for experimentation or, building up prototypes or, low volume things. But as you get, more and more experience with these things, you're going to realize like, oh, I can just do directly with API and get better outcomes.
Yeah. It's text is very wasteful, I think, when it comes to making API calls. Think about images. Images have very high density for the number of tokens that get used. I think we could start looking at things like binary output from LLMs for, it's like protobufs or something, just directly talking to APIs rather than this intermediate step of let's turn it into text and then let's pass it to a proxy and then whatever. Let's pass it again at the other end. Like, just very roundabout way of getting stuff done.
As soon as you said the binary, I'm just imagining two AI servers. I think we talked about it. It was like the two servers like figured out they could talk in binary and just started talking to each other. And like, was it nobody understood it? Like, I'm just imagining, like, I feel like the reason why we always wanted to go back to natural language and to human text is that we can look at it, we trust
we can audit it, yeah.
Right. Versus, if it dumps down into, hey, my computer's talking to it in binary, which at some level it always is, but, there's no view of what's going on at that point. Without, again, you would have to have a translator somewhere in there. So,
I mean, I don't look at the compiled, bytecode of my Java apps. There comes a point where you trust the underlying systems to do what they're supposed to do properly, and then you just look at the outcomes. Does it run? Does it pass tests? Great. I don't care beyond that.
I don't know that I trust AI yet enough for that, though. Maybe I'm more cynical, but I feel like I'm not there yet, and then my next question is, why are you writing Java bytecode? Like, what?
That's just an example.
What's wrong with bytecode? It's fine. It's good.
There are a lot of cloud cost management tools out there, but only Archera provides insured commitments. It sounds fancy, but it's really simple. Archera gives you the cost savings of a 1 or 3 year AWS savings plan with a commitment as short as 30 days. If you do not use all the cloud resources you've committed to, Archera will literally cover the differences. Other cost management tools may say they offered insured commitments, but remember to ask, will you actually give me my rebate? Archera will. Check out thecloudpod.net/Archera to schedule a demo today.
All right, well, AWS Marketplace is launching the Agreements API, allowing organizations to programmatically procure software, accept offers, track charges, and manage entitlements and update purchase orders without leaving the existing procurement tools, like Coupa. Combined with existing Discovery API, this creates a full end-to-end programmatic procurement workflow from product discovery through purchase, which is useful for enterprises running automated or policy-driven software acquisition processes. Partners and ISVs can use these APIs to build custom storefronts on top of AWS Marketplace, giving them more control over how customers experience the procurement process with their own platforms. API is currently available in, of course, US East 1. This is worth noting for organizations with regional compliance or data residency requirements, as the broader region availability is not yet confirmed. Hopefully, US East 1 doesn't go down on the last day of the month when you need to book that deal. So, but yeah, I think Marketplace has always been US East heavy, from my understanding.
Yeah.
But this is nice because they had a Coupa integration. I don't know. They announced maybe 6 years ago. They announced it, then they basically did nothing, and no one adopted it, and they kind of stopped working on it. So this is much better to have an agreements API that you can actually integrate into. And I kind of like to see, this is an area I know one of our procurement managers was really hot on back in the day as an area of complaint. I like to see something similar from Google and Azure, I think.
Nice. I mentioned the future now where you've got your AI negotiating with the AI of your vendor over the pricing. They can haggle for a few milliseconds and then shake hands or whatever.
Yeah, I mean, there's an interesting LLM company or AI company called Vendor, VENDR, and their whole stick is that basically they have all this pricing data from all these deals that were negotiated, and they can help you know what you should pay for software, help you negotiate it, and do all kinds of things. it's kind of interesting just to go there because it's, if you want to buy it as a company, it's kind of expensive, but you can just ask their agent just questions as well without having for free, and it is kind of interesting. So definitely something to check out.
Yeah, that's cool. I'm actually, one of the side effects I think of AI and MCPs in general is that I think it's forcing things like this to happen. It's forcing machine-to-machine protocols, whereas previously you had to go to a website and the person had to log in and the person had to type up an agreement or accept it by clicking a button. I think we're going to move a lot more away from those manual steps so they can be automated, which is great.
I agree. Launching the Agent Toolkit for AWS, which is a free suite of tools designed to help AI coding agents work more reliably on AWS by providing validated, up-to-date procedures called agent skills, reducing errors and token waste in multi-service workflows. It exceeds the MCP servers and plugins previously hosted on AWS Labs. The toolkit launches with over 40 agent skills covering infrastructure as code, storage analytics, serverless containers, and AI services with database networking and IAM skills planned very soon. Come on, some FinOps skills too. Skills give agents tested procedures rather than letting them improvise from potentially outdated trained data. The AWS MCP server combined with this basically gives you a full pre-bundled set of configs and plugins to simplify using AWS. So combination of these two things. Now your agent can do the things with the MCP or this to get your access. You sound skeptical.
Us skeptical? No.
Yeah. Yeah, I don't fully know on this one either. Everyone's trying to get to agents and how agents run on top of Bedrock Agent Core. And so like how baked are these things when things like Bedrock Agent Core are pretty new? Yeah, I do appreciate it. I think the MCP server is probably where I would spend most of my time if I was building an agent for this, even though I just mocked it mercilessly. But the plugins might be good or the skills might be good for certain things if you're not familiar. Like if they could do an incognito skill that could actually make you configure that without pulling my hair out of my goatee, because I don't have hair on my head. That'd be great. I love it. So, a skill like that, I'd be appreciative of.
Yeah, it's useful. I noticed Code actually checking its own documentation yesterday when I asked something. Everything needs to do that, but of course the quality of the documentation has to be good enough to begin with. And so,
well, I mean, like the nice thing about Amazon is they've always been really good about their APIs. So, if you can just go interpret the API documentation, that's even better on Amazon case. But then you go to Google and you're like, your API documentation is terrible. So then you need the docs to go with the APIs. So your API can be the answer to your question if you do it right. But
I always felt like on AWS, I would go to the Terraform documentation and read all the options for the resources. That was always
I would do that too.
To figure stuff out. And then I would go be like, oh, what is this? And then from there, go find the AWS documentation. I always went to Terraform first for some reason.
Terraform or the Boto 3 module.
Yeah.
Well, there was a command line tool from Amazon, actually, AWS Shell, that I used a lot as well, because as you were typing out your CLI, it would basically give you like full documentation on each part of it, which was nice too. But I don't know if that's still around. I haven't tried in a while.
I thought it got integrated. I thought they had like AWS Shell 2, which integrated some of those features into it, but maybe I'm wrong.
I mean, I think a lot of it probably got moved into the AWS Shell console experience because that's where it probably should have lived all along when they bolted that on top. But I don't know. Speaking of terrible consoles, the mobile app has new CloudWatch alarm investigations now in a single view, combining interactive metric graphs, AI-generated log summaries, and natural language log search to reduce the time from alert to root cause identification. Natural language log search supports type queries, voice input, and pre-save log insight queries, which lowers the barrier for on-call engineers who need to investigate incidents quickly from their mobile device, which I've done many times trying to look through logs on my mobile device, which is a terrible experience.
It's not good.
And so I love that there's now a natural language way to do it on my phone. Then I had to ask the question, why can't you put this into the console? Because the syntax for using your logging in CloudWatch is not easy either. And if I could naturally language search that, that'd be great too.
I thought they have natural language.
You had to ask Q, and then Q will give you the query, which is silly. That's how I had to do it last time.
Oh, yeah, that's what I've done. You're right.
Yeah. But if it just natively integrated, like there's a search box that I just type in, hey, I'm looking for any logs that are 404 for the last 24 hours in the web server. If you could figure that out, that'd be amazing. It would save me a lot of time.
Yeah, the Google Cloud Assist is really good on some pages. And then on other pages, like, I can't help you there. Like, why? You can see the page like I can. This is really, really kind of hit and miss, though. It's kind of smells a bit like the AWS console experience a few years ago when some people looked like, some things looked newly styled and some didn't, and some had some features and some didn't. It's So obviously, like delegated to the product teams to implement those things. But it's a shame. But yeah, I kind of wonder if it's actually cheaper for them to give you that AI service for free than it is to have you sit there and fiddle with it for 30 minutes to try and find the data you actually want.
No, they charge you for the data that you want, though. Every query,
Yeah.
they charge you for.
They charge you the tokens, so it's, yeah.
So at what point is it really worth it for them to implement?
Not sure.
Mm.
Well, we had about agreements earlier. And so if you were like, well, that's nice, but I want an agent to be able to go buy things. Well, Amazon has that for you too with Amazon Bedrock Agent Core Payments built with Coinbase and Stripe. This is in preview, which lets AI agents autonomously pay for APIs, MCP servers, web content, and other agents using either a Coinbase wallet or Stripe Privy wallet with spending limits enforced per session to prevent open-ended fund access. The feature is built on the X402 protocol, an HTTP native standard where agents handle HTTP 402 payment required responses automatically, executing stablecoin micropayments and continuing their task without interrupting the reasoning loop. Fiat payment support is on the roadmap. Developers configured a funded wallet, set session spending limits, and the platform handles credential management, protocol negotiation, and transaction observability through existing agent core logs and traces, reducing what AWS describes as months of custom building integration work. The Coinbase X402 Bazaar MCP server is available through Agent Core Gateway, giving agents discovery mechanism to find and pay for X402 enabled services dynamically, rather than requiring developers to hardcode each integration. And this is available to you in US East, North, West, Europe, and Asia. And if this is what you think is going to make Coinbase, blockchain purchasing more popular, I don't know if that's the case. But it is an interesting way to maybe potentially charge, people who are, scraping websites for access to content with MCPs, and because like now everyone's kind of the war to stop scrapers. But if I could, basically, use this as a way to charge or pay for that, it might be nice.
I think of it like the S3 bucket where you can do, request or pay, or the other one, or you pay for it. That's kind of the way I'm thinking here it is. And like you said, I was thinking about it from like the web perspective too, which is, hey, you can hit my website, but I'm going to charge you 3 cents and you have to pay for it. And this enables that to happen because, if AWS did it or Microsoft did it for, like you were talking about the show notes, like that's a valuable thing for us and might be worth 3 cents, a story, sorry, words evade me right now, in order to actually get that notes versus us having to manually go in and do it or set up a Selenium server or whatever backway door you want to get around the bots.
I mean, I have a bunch of ways that we do now that work mostly pretty well. There's a couple that I have to manually insert content into, but it's not too many, and it has very angry prompts when it does it. Like the internet hates me, or this company is going to die, and I take over. Please give me the content. Bull gets a little testy when they can't get to your content.
It really does. I've got one of those messages before,
which it's fantastic. I love it.
Not even just for agents though, just people on the browser. It would be just nice to have a wallet attached to my browser with $10 in it. Mm-hmm. And then if I want to read a Wired article, or if I want to read an article on The Guardian or the BBC, everyone now is paywalled.
Yeah. Even CNN is paywalled nowadays. And it's kind of annoying because I'm like, I just want to see this one article. I don't want to pay you $9.99 a month. I don't want to pay another subscription. I just like to pay for this one article. And then none of them have like pay for a day or even pay for a single article, which is super frustrating. But I mean, if this paywall world is going to continue, then the need for that is going to continue to be a thing. Well, we have 3 new features for ElastiCache this week. First up, Valkey 9, which adds built-in full text and hybrid search capabilities on top of existing vector similarity search, enabling real-time semantic retrieval and aggregations over terabytes of data with microsecond latency at no additional cost, which is pretty great. This is a notable performance improvement in 9.0, is up to 40% higher throughput for pipelined workloads, achieved through engine-level optimizations like faster command parsing and improved memory prefetching, which could reduce over-provisioning costs for high-throughput apps. There's 2 new operational features. Hash field expiration lets you apply TTLs to individual fields within a hash rather than an entire key. And multi-data support in cluster mode provides logical namespaces that simplify multi-tenant architectures and migration from standalone Redis environments. Valkey 9 is available in most commercial regions, GovCloud, and China regions for both node-based clusters and serverless caches. And AWS continues to position Valkey as its recommended ElastiCache engine over Redis. The full text exact match and numeric range search directly within the cache layer, eliminating the need to a separate search service and enabling latency as low as microseconds is also one of the features. And then that vector capability is the one that I'm most excited about because we're using S3 vectors, which is nice, but I need to redo the embeddings. And I already use Valkey for other caching needs. So I'm just going to move over to that and it's going to be much faster. So Bolt suddenly will answer your questions much faster than he used to because he won't be going to S3. Although S3 is not super slow. It's like 400 to 600 milliseconds. I think this brings it down to like 50 to 100 milliseconds is what I was seeing on some of the metrics. So it's not a huge improvement, but I need to redo the embeddings anyway. So might as well take advantage and reduce some of the complexity of the architecture.
Oh, nice. I've been using Valkey recently. I didn't know they were bringing embedding support. That's very good to know.
I mean, the one problem is Amazon really only provides Nova embedding as like a Bedrock embedding model, and unless you go use Cohere or Mistral or any of the others. So that's definitely something to keep in mind too. So you might have to bring your own embedding model if you don't like Novas.
Yeah, I haven't tried Nova actually.
It's not bad. I just I don't know that it's the best one because again, it's Nova and nothing else about Nova is good. So I'm like, how much better could it be if I use something else?
Yeah, I mean the OpenAI embedding service, which costs money, is very, very good, but it costs money.
Yeah, well, I mean, so does the Nova one, just not a lot of money.
Yeah.
And it's built into the architecture, so
yeah, it's funny, you know, it's not even about the fact that it's 5 cents for a million tokens or whatever. It could be like a negligible amount of money. It's the fact that it costs any money at all because it completely changes the way you have to integrate with it.
Mm-hmm. Mm. Well, the nice thing would be potentially with OpenAI models ending up on Bedrock now, maybe I should check it again because it's been a little bit. Maybe the embedding model is one of the options coming from OpenAI into Amazon. So that might be something I can look at and then just pay for it that way. Oh, good to know. AWS capabilities by region in the AWS Builder Center now supports availability notifications, letting builders subscribe to alerts when specific services or features launch in their target regions across 1,500 services in 37 regions. Subscriptions work at the service level, meaning a single subscription to something like Amazon Bedrock automatically covers all underlying features such as knowledge bases and guardrails, removing the need to track each feature individually. Notifications come through 2 channels, either real-time in-app alerts with AWS Builder Center or a consolidated weekly email digest. I mean, this is great. And something that is, they get more and more regions out there becomes a bit of a problem. I mean, we used to talk about all the different regions getting services, and we even stopped talking about them here. Even though they were lightning round topic, we were just like, we can't. It's ridiculous how these things roll out over time and what's available and not available. But having the ability to see what it is, but then now sign up for a notification so I don't have to go back to the Builder Center, even better. Nice quality of life.
Yeah, I mean, on Azure, it's the same exact problems, and there's, things that we deployed the product in multiple locations for my day job, and there's slight nuances we have to do differently because this NAT v2 isn't in India, but it is in other locations, so getting those notifications versus, hey, watching the feeds and somewhere in the back of my head remembering this is very useful, at least for me.
Yeah. I mean, in Google land, you'll have entire regions without Gemini or Vertex. So, I mean, you can have those kind of problems. I mean,
Azure's the same thing.
Yeah.
Yeah. Sovereign cloud, now without all the features you really want.
Yeah.
Thanks.
You want the sovereign cloud region in this place. Cool. We did it for you. Like, well, what about all these cool AI things you guys are announcing? Yeah, we don't have that there because that doesn't exist there yet. Well, when's it going to exist? I'm like, I don't know. You should ask Google because I can't tell you.
I asked Google. They don't know.
They don't know either. Yeah, that's the worst part.
Like, why did you use the one in Europe? Like, because we used this one because we needed to use this one.
Yeah. And so then they're like, well, you can, we have GPUs there. You can just run your own models. I'm like, but all of our code and testing is written against Gemini. So how's that going to work? Like, so are you telling me that I can't use Gemini? I should just use open models globally so we have consistency? Well, no, we're not telling you that. Okay. The fun. A Claude platform on AWS gives customers access to Anthropic's native Claude platform directly through their AWS account, eliminating the need for separate credentials, contracts, or billing relationships with Anthropic. AWS noted as the first cloud provider to offer this native integration. The service uses IAM credentials and AWS Signature version 4 for authentication, logs, activity to CloudTrail, and builds their AWS marketplace, meaning teams can manage cloud usage alongside existing AWS governance and cost tracking workflows. And it's just as bad. An important technical distinction to understand: Cloud platform on AWS is operated by Anthropic and processes data outside of the AWS security boundary, making it different from cloud models on Bedrock, which stay in the AWS infrastructure. Teams with regional data residency requirements should factor this into their decision. So this is nice because it's a little bit better than just having the API. You get all the features that you kind of lose typically by using the Bedrock API with Claude, So things like Chrome browse modes, that works in this as well. And basically what this really is a different way to contract and buy your Claude managed services through AWS, which I think is handy. So it's nice. It's not quite exactly what I would want. We talked to them about this actually last week to get some more information about it. And it doesn't fix a lot of the audit loggings and a lot of the gaps that you have. So while they say you can see all this visibility, you can't, because it doesn't exist in Anthropic to begin with. So, but it is nice to be able to use IAM credentials and some of the other things that it comes with.
Does it count towards your committed spend? This is the question, or some fractional? It does. Wow.
Yes. And if you have a committed spend with Anthropic, I also learned recently that if you are using Anthropic through Bedrock or through Vertex or through the Azure Model Garden, that'll also count against your Anthropic commitment, even though it's being used by a third party. So that's an interesting double benefit you get.
So if this data has been processed outside of AWS, is this the first partnership of this type? Because I know Google have been doing this for a long time.
No. What about Oracle?
Yeah, that'd be the first probably.
No, I mean for Amazon. Is this the first sort of?
Well, Amazon has Oracle at Amazon. That has the same thing that Azure and Google do, where they'll run
Oracle at AWS or whatever.
Yeah,
where it's like essentially they've set up a direct connect between the two and they processor.
I mean, I assume that the preference for Anthropic in this model is that they are using AWS to service it, but I think what they have the ability to send that traffic over to XAI or to other places they have contracts with if they need the capacity, I think is what you're getting the benefit of.
That's interesting.
Yeah.
The cloud is changing.
It's becoming very multi-cloud very quickly because everyone realizes they don't have the capacity to do anything that people want to do. So yeah, it's kind of crazy. AWS Security Agent now includes full repository code scanning and preview, offering context-aware security analysis that reasons about entire code bases rather than matching individual lines against known vulnerability patterns like traditional SAST tools do. The scanner operates in 4 stages, profiling the application to map entry points and trust boundaries, dispatching specialized agents to high-risk components, deduplicating findings, and independently validating each candidate's vulnerability before surfacing it to developers. A notable distinction from existing tools is how findings are structured with separate verified and could not verify sections so developers know exactly what was confirmed in code versus what depends on runtime or deployment environmental factors. Practical use cases include running scans before penetration tests to clear lower-hanging issues, auditing acquired or open source code without needing institutional knowledge, and servicing architectural trust boundary issues alongside implementation bugs. Full repository code review is available now and preview at no additional charge for existing AWS Security Agent customers, which accesses through the AWS Security Agent console, and a quick start guide is available to you. I do kind of want to play with this with Bolt. I just don't know how much AWS Security Agent costs, and I'm afraid if I turn it on, I can't turn it off. So I will see if I can get a test of this without committing myself to some terrible contract, and let you guys know when I do that. But I am really curious with this one. So
yeah, I mean it's interesting. I wonder what model they're using underneath because it's not Nova.
It's probably Anthropic, I assume.
Yeah, I kind of wonder. Yeah, I mean, it must suck that they built a model that's so good that they can't sell it to anybody. The Mythos model, at least.
Ooh, this agent is $50 per task hour.
Oof. Wow.
That's a pricey agent. Yeah, I'm not going to use that right away. The security agent's a penetration testing agent. So that's for penetration testing, that's actually not that expensive. But for my personal hobby needs, it's a bit pricey. So.
I just have Claude set up once a week to go do a security review of my repo and fix all highs and criticals. And
so I have in my so I have that for Dependapot alerts, and then also have in some of my CI. I actually have it if it gets above a certain number, it'll automatically have to go fix it. But yeah, that's pretty good as well. And then I also have a security agent that runs and I do multi-agent steps as well, so that helps too. But then one of the cool things is so like Claude Code, you can install Cortex as an agent or plugin inside of Claude Code, and you can have it do what do they call it? Like a heavy like interrogation style review of your code. And so that's kind of neat too, because you get that other cloud, AI basically doing a security test validation against what you're doing in code, which is kind of nice. Just remember you have to do it before you commit the PR, because otherwise it won't help you. Before you commit the code.
That's what I used to do actually with GitHub Copilot and Claude. Is I would write everything in Claude, send it up to GitHub, like GitHub Copilot do the review of it. Not as much of security, but it does pull those things, and then I would actually have Claude go read all the comments and then provide me recommendations to go fix them. So just loop the bots fixing each other. till it was happy.
And our last story is apparently Sean Bice, who was at Microsoft, is returning to AWS as VP of AI Services to lead the Automated Reasoning Group. Reporting to Swami Sivasubramanian, who oversees agentic AI at Amazon and used to be ML. Bice previously ran AWS database portfolio, including Aurora, DynamoDB, and RDS before leaving in 2021. I assume to follow Charlie Bell. I assume that was about the timing. The Automated Reasoning Group focuses on neurosymbolic AI, which combines pattern matching capabilities with mathematical verification techniques to confirm software is behaving as intended. The goal is to give businesses stronger guarantees about AI agent behavior before deploying them autonomously. This hire comes after AWS acknowledged a limited service disruption in February tied to an AI agent making changes without human oversight, which raised questions about reliability controls in agentic systems. Bice's background in security at Microsoft, where he oversaw security Copilot and Sentinel, appears relevant to addressing those concerns. AWS customers building or evaluating agentic AI workflows. This signals that AWS is investing heavily in formal verification and trust mechanisms as a differentiator. And considering that Vertex has had this for a while, it does feel like an area that AWS should invest more security capabilities in front of AI agentic.
Nope, I was ready for Matt. That's fine.
I don't have much on that one.
I don't have much on that one either, honestly. It's the people moving around is interesting though, especially Sean and Charlie going back and forth. It's kind of...
Well, I mean, Charlie's still there. He just moved out of the security thing into that other group we talked about.
Yeah, that's right.
Ago.
Yeah.
But maybe that would left Sean in a bad position. He's like, well, I'll go back and do this. So
maybe. Oh, cool.
Let's move on to Google. This is from Business Insider, so not really news, maybe more rumor. Google is internally testing an AI agent called Remy, described as a 24-personal agent built on Gemini that can take actions on behalf of users rather than just answering questions or generating content. It's currently in a dog fooding phase with employees using a staff-only version of the Gemini app. Remy is designed to integrate deeply across Google services with the ability to monitor for user-defined priorities, handle complex multi-step tasks proactively, and learn user preferences over time. No public launch time is available at this time, but I assume probably between now and next. So, I mean, I think this is what I think Gemini Enterprise should already be doing. That's what I would hope it would be doing. So the fact that it doesn't do it today, which is annoying because I tried to use a lot of Gemini Enterprise every day at the day job, where we're a big customer of it, and I'm always disappointed in the limited capabilities it has. I hope this comes quickly because they need much better capabilities here.
Yeah, so it's like Google Readers come back with AI.
Yeah, hey, go check out these RSS feeds for me. Let me know, and then summarize them. That'd be great. Yeah,
yeah,
yeah. Oh, cool. Yeah, this is the deal. Like, watch this for me. Let me know when this happens in the world. That kind of thing.
Mm-hmm.
It's it. If the AI, if this, then that. I guess.
Oh yeah. I mean, I feel like everyone's building an answer to OpenClaw at this point.
I mean, because it's just one way to. I think the reality is that no one really has a great way to do agentic runtime. So basically, this was one model that someone came up with, and everyone's like, "Yes, we'll just build that," because everyone seems to like that. But the security implications of what OpenClaw is, I mean, just freak me out at this point. So, like every time I hear some horror story about it, I'm just like, man, that is rough.
Yeah, it's rushed. I think it's going to lead to a lot smaller models. But really, it's just too expensive to run. You couldn't possibly use a large model. Even even one of the smaller Gemini models would probably be too expensive at Google scale to run for millions of customers who set up rules to say, "Hey, watch this. Let me know if this happens."
Mm-hmm. But can you run it on the edge? That would be the other question.
Well,
you run it in a 4 gig LLM runs in your browser.
Run in somebody else's browser. Yeah, I mean, I guess it's that. But like, do I really need? The models are very, very capable and far more capable than they need to be to do these basic tasks. Like, do they need to speak 5 languages? Would it be better to spend the money up front to train language-specific models or domain-specific models? Do I need it to have a PhD in chemistry to read my email and respond to somebody? No, I don't. So I think there should be a lot more focus on the training process to give it sort of a the kindergarten, elementary school, and high school education, and then give it some kind of task to do. Let it graduate with a degree in email management or something. But it doesn't need to be an expert in everything. And I think these models could be a whole lot smaller. And I think that's the only way it's going to be cost effective.
I mean, I think this is where we really need a good model router layer that can determine what should go to local versus what should go to remote, and then be able to dynamically do those things and combine it together. But the tokenizer isn't sophisticated enough to handle that yet. And I think that's where the bottleneck is. So
yeah, I mean, mixture experts were supposed to help things like this, but if you look at the analysis of what each expert is doing in a MOE model, it's not a nice breakdown. It's not, chemistry's in this bucket and cloud computing's in this model. It's a lot more sort of language oriented than that. So this particular model looks at things, conditional statements, or this one looks at possessive things. It's not what it needs to be yet. So small models, I think, is the way.
Yeah. Well, speaking of Google's small models, Gemma 4 came out a while back. I don't know, maybe a month or two back. And I think I talked about here on the show that I tried to use it with Claude Code and Open Code, and I was kind of unimpressed. But they've kind of quietly updated it in the last week with the new multi-token prediction drafters for Gemma 4, which offers up to a 3x faster token generation through speculative decoding. The drafter model predicts future tokens during idle compute cycles rather than waiting for the main model to process each token sequentially. The MTP drafter for the E2B model is notably smaller at 74 million parameters, and it shares the main model's key value cache to avoid redundant context recalculation. It also uses sparse decoding to narrow down likely token clusters, which contributes to the speed improvements on memory-constrained consumer hardware. This addresses a specific bottleneck in local AI inference where slow VRAM to compute transfers leave processing units idle between tokens, and consumer GPUs lack the high bandwidth memory found in enterprise hardware, so the drafter fills that gap by doing useful work during those transfer delays. Gemma 4 runs under the Apache 2 license, which is a more permissive change from the custom license used in prior Gemma versions, which broadens options for developers building commercial or derivative applications. If you're a developer running local inference on consumer or prosumer hardware who wants fast generation without upgrading to enterprise accelerators, this is an option for you.
But it's only fast if you've got spare compute cycles. If you're running at full capacity, it's actually
slower,
a lot slower.
Right.
So you may not want it or not. It depends on your use case. But I could see, like in my coding use cases, this at home, like this probably I could use this a little bit.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I guess if it asks you a yes/no question, you can speculatively start answering those responses
Both
and then
options,
discard
right.
the one that the user didn't choose.
And this is part of the reason why I kind of feel like the AGI barrier is probably quantum combined with an LLM. Because those two things, then you could do exactly that. You could run both paths and decide the right answer. And but that's my belief. That's when we get AGI is when quantum is real enough that it can do it. Oh yeah, so I haven't tried Gemma 4 again. I'm gonna see if it also fixed some of my complaints about its coding abilities, because I was, like I said, unimpressed last time, but I doubt it. Quen and Kimmy 2.6 are still leading the pack for me on the open source side. Gemini,
Quen, okay, right in Python.
Yeah. Python and Node.js and all that kind of stuff. Yeah.
Okay, yeah, I tried to have Quen write some C#. It didn't go well.
I mean, I don't, as a developer, I can't even write good C# code. So I just don't think that's a thing people do.
I know, that's why I was trying to use an AI.
I love it. I wonder if Microsoft's open model would be good at writing .NET code. That'd be an interesting test.
They haven't updated that in a while, have they? That was Phi.
No, they haven't in a while.
I don't think I've seen a new Phi model for a while, for sure.
Probably at their, don't they have a conference coming up that we talked about that I think you're supposed to do predictions?
No, we don't do predictions for Microsoft shows unless you force us to. And you don't care anymore.
You can't force us to. It's fine. I'm still going to force us to.
But what is it? Is it Build that's in June, or there's only one that makes sense for us to do predictions on? The other one is not really our show. So
Ignite.
I think
Ignite is in, it's right before a re:Invent too, which really makes November fun.
Fun is a stretch. Gemini 3.1 Flash Lite is now generally available on the Gemini Enterprise Agent platform, positioned as the lowest latency and most cost-efficient model in the Gemini 3 series, designed for high-volume automated pipelines and agentic tasks like tool calling and orchestration. Apparently, real-world performance metrics from early adopters are notable. Gladly reported roughly 60% lower cost compared to thinking tier models with P95 latency around 1.8 seconds for full reply generation and a 99.6% success rate under heavy concurrent load across SMS, WhatsApp, and Instagram channels. The model supports multimodal inputs, enabling use cases like simultaneous text and image safety checks in gaming platforms and prompt enhancements for image generation pipelines, areas where cost previously limited sophisticated prompt engineering at scale. Financial services teams are using Flashlight for latency-sensitive workflows, including real-time research during live calls, email triage, and high-volume data processing, with RAMP noting it leads on cost, latency, and intelligence trade-offs across their model stack.
I mean, just like Jonathan's saying, some of these, I think, while you're not getting more domain-specific stuff, that you're optimizing them for different areas. And a lot of it's going to be using having the human right now be in the loop to say this model is the right model in this location. And I think eventually you will end up with model routers or something.
Yeah, is this equivalent to like a haiku type model, basically?
Flash, yeah, Flashlight is.
Yeah, okay.
But I think, I mean, everyone sees LLMs now, and it's become the hammer, and everything looks like a nail, and so everyone uses these things. There are still like bird models and things, text classifiers, and people like Gladly, who are doing like user interactions and customer service interactions and things. There's a whole lot they can do without using LLMs at all. We've kind of forgotten that ML still exists, and classifiers have been around for a very long time.
LLM is how ML makes money.
Exactly.
Exactly.
Just want to make sure we're all on the same page here.
Everyone's just forgotten that there's a whole bunch of other stuff that's not LLMs in this field.
Well, that's the thing is, like, when I was doing the end of year recap and I was doing all those analytics, like, and I was using the LLM to help me generate all this stuff, and I was like, oh, I'm going to have to, custom train a model. And it was like, no, just use Python ML. Like, Python ML stuff was perfect for this. Like, we could just do pattern matching. I'm like, oh yeah, duh.
Yeah.
Like,
yeah, and everyone's, the instruct models that are trained for chat and to answer questions, that's all done in post training. The base models are still completion models. So I don't know. You find people using chat models and then sort of prompting it with a chat as though they're asking a question interactively, and then passing out the answer, and just building it as a completion model would have been easier. Whatever.
If you care about GKE nodes running faster, Google now makes them run 4x faster for startup for qualifying nodes in autopilot mode, addressing cold start latency that historically forced teams to over-provision idle compute as the buffer against scaling delays. I mean, I guess if you really care about this, you must be training models, and this is really important to you, but most people probably don't care that much about this.
I mean, how many 4 times faster is great, but like, are we talking 4 minutes versus 1 minute, or 10 seconds versus 2 seconds?
I haven't used enough GK Copilot or Autopilot to know how fast a node boots up, but I mean, like, my ECS experience is that I can start up a new node in about 90 seconds. So if you can do that 4 times faster, you can do it in 20 seconds. I don't know that I care. So it doesn't really give a baseline.
But it means you can reduce your thresholds, of when to scale up, so you don't have to over-provision. But if you're paying by hour for these things, who cares?
I mean, I feel like if you're running a SaaS workload at this point, you typically have enough telemetry data that you can auto schedule that yourself. And so if you know that you're in at 8 a.m., all my users start using the system, and so at 7:30 I can spin up some boxes. Like the need for like instant on-demand capacity at a Kubernetes node level feels rare to me, unless you're doing something like agentic training where you're like, oh, we need to spin up a bunch of workers, so we need to. So I imagine it's tied to some of that. And then I can see the benefit to this inside a Cloud Run, where it's really, that's how you run Lambda on Google. But then you are dealing with a bunch of overhead of Cloud Run that I don't think applies to this use case either. So I don't fully get who cares. That's why, other than the people who are doing, things with AI GPUs. So, and a lot of their, I see accelerated provisioning is live right now for workloads running GK Autopilot, including Autopilot was running inside standard clusters using the following hardware: the NVIDIA L4, the A100, the RTX Pro 6000, the H100. So this is definitely directed at people doing AI things.
Yeah, it is. But looking at the actual article,
real-time AI feedback.
Yeah. AlloyDB now supports PostgreSQL 18 and general availability, bringing features like B-tree skip scans, parallel gen index usage, native UUID v7 support, and virtual and generated columns to Google's managed Postgres service. Google is introducing extended support for older AlloyDB major versions, giving customers up to 3 years of continued security patches, bug fixes, and SLA coverage beyond community end-of-life dates. Pricing for extended support has not been announced yet, but I can tell you that this is the feature that I hate the most about both Amazon and Google doing this extended support, basically taxing process where they start charging you more money because it's old. It's kind of annoying. And I get why they do it. I mean, you have to maintain test harnesses, all that, but I can't imagine you're doing that much changing to the orchestration layer. That code doesn't have to change. It's really just a way to tax people and make more money on old stuff. That's my opinion.
Yeah, it's a price increase for old things.
Mm-hmm.
It's a price increase because you can't get your development team to prioritize migrations.
And then all of a sudden, surprise, when that date hits in February, and all of a sudden their price jumped up 35%, and they're like, "What the hell happened?" And it's like, "Well, you didn't upgrade to Postgres."
Yeah, and I think that's the real piece here is forcing. It gives companies a way to either say do it or we're going to spend the money on it, and becomes a business decision. Microsoft does it with those things with OSs too.
Yeah, I mean, I guess it's a motivator to help people keep things up to date, but I don't know. It's great for the enterprise who've got potentially hundreds of engineers who can work on things to do this. But if you're not a large company, then you pick something you'd like to. I mean, Postgres is old though. Postgres 18. How old is that? Seriously?
It's I don't know. Postgres 18 release date.
Postgres 18, 2025, September 25th, 2025.
Nah.
18.3 released in this year, just last a couple months ago.
Okay. Well, extending support to 2030, so
Yeah, I mean, it's not terrible yet, but it's like this thing you now have to track and manage, because if you don't take advantage of it, you're going to have systems eventually. Is it really more AliDB is not as much of my complaint as it really is Cloud SQL, where they do this as well. But again, I get their argument they're making. I just don't think the argument is as expensive as they imply. And that's where I get frustrated with this tax. And like the whole argument they made originally on was like, move all your old crappy stuff to cloud because it's now supported and you don't have to worry about this old thing on your data center dying. And they're like, oh, well, you did that. And now we're going to screw you over by charging you way more money. That's where I'm kind of like, you've changed the terms of the agreement. And that's what I don't like.
Yeah, that's fair.
All right, let's move on to Azure. So we're only keeping this story because Matt said we had to, because it was the only real good infrastructure story here. Azure SQL Database now supports soft delete retention for logical servers in preview, allowing deleted servers to be recovered within a configurable window of 1 to 7 days. This addresses a long-standing gap where accidental deletion of a logical server meant permanent loss of the server configuration and all associated databases. So Matt, I have to ask you, what server did you delete that you really wish you had this feature?
Luckily, it was a dev server, so it was fine. But it is a nice feature. They have it for databases. They don't have it for elastic pools because that's just a construct for compute memory. But they had it at the lower level at each database. So to me, it kind of made sense to have it at the higher level too. And they have it for, same way AWS has it for Secret Manager, for Key Vault and things like that, where you can delete and there's a recovery period. And given that this is where all your data is, it feels like a place that this should have existed already.
Okay. Do we have that on Amazon or Google where it's soft deletes? Or is this an Azure uniqueness? I'm pretty sure I've deleted databases on RDS and they've been gone forever. So.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. Well, on the UI, you have to check that box, which always confuses me. And I've definitely deleted something in Azure or in AWS too in my career. So,
Yeah. I think I run through that at least once. Terraform destroy is not something you actually want to run unless you're truly want to destroy it, because it's not what you think it is. Microsoft's principal product manager, Mads Christensen, announces that Copilot subagents are coming soon to Visual Studio, bringing a feature that has been available in VS Code since around GitHub Universe 2025 to the full Windows IDE. A subagent is an independent AI agent that handles a focused task, such as auditing config files or reviewing test coverage, and returns only a summary to the main agent, which helps manage context window consumption in large projects like complex .NET solutions. I mean, I guess I'm happy that you finally got this. It's been in Claude and all the other tools for a while, so congrats that you finally got what everyone else has. So you're welcome. And then another one that we had to talk about was Azure is finally letting you migrate VMs out of availability sets into virtual machine scale sets without nuking and rebuilding your workload. This has been a long-standing pain point for anyone who stood up infrastructure before VMS Flex was the recommended pattern. The scale ceiling alone is worth paying attention to, as availability sets cap out at 200 VMs. VMS Flex goes all the way up to 1,000, and you can get auto-scaling, rolling upgrades, and zone-level resiliency that availability sets never had. The migration is VM by VM and cancelable at any point, which is the right call for production workloads. And you can validate each machine before moving on. And anything that you have migrated stays put in the original set if you bail. Does the load balancer route between a scale set and this at the same time, or is that an oversight on their part?
No, I think it will, because that's done. The scale set will attach to the load balancer. I haven't played with availability sets because I luckily joined Azure after that was really their preferred path. But I know that this was a pain point for people. And the way most people do is just delete and recreate, take the maintenance window, do it during a normal upgrade, which is what I know I've seen people do.
So, I mean, like on the Amazon side, we had launch sets, and I forget the name of the other one, and I also don't remember which one
templates.
Templates. I don't remember which one is the one that you're supposed to use anymore, because I never remember this.
Launch configuration and launch templates, and they moved from configurations to templates. I'm gonna say 80% positive. I got it.
That sounds correct. I think you're right. But like it was a breaking change, but like you just spun up a new launch template and then you attach it to the load balancer group, and then you just spun up the new VMs and you spun down the old ones, and then you were done. It wasn't hard. I don't understand why. Like people, is this just a Microsoft thing where Microsoft admins are just like, this is hard, I don't want to do this?
Yes.
Is that why this exists? Okay, that's clear.
That's at least my understanding of it. I mean, I haven't done this specific migration, but that's the way I feel like a lot of things are. People like to have it, and my favorite is they'll say, hey, this is going to be EOL in 2027, in January 1, 2027, and October 2026, they released a migration path between the two. It's like, so people obviously have figured out how to do this migration for years. And my assumption is something's going EOL, and they're trying to force people over. And it's the lower end people that aren't as cloud native that need that assistance.
Okay, that's fair. I mean, Amazon still supports both the old model and the new model, which is part of the reason why I'm confused which one is which. But and also your Terraform, if you're using AI agentic, will sometimes do the wrong one. So that's something to watch out for. If you're using a agentic agent that doesn't have the proper Amazon NCP attached, perhaps to avoid that. Well, that's a fantastic show, guys. So thank you very much. We'll see you, I guess, next week.
Yeah, it's good.
Or stick around for an after show. You choose.
All right, see you later, guys.
Bye.
See ya.
Another week of cloud news wrapped up. Bolt will collect the news. Justin will get the notes. Jonathan will write some code. Ryan will watch the perimeter. And Matt will reluctantly watch Azure. Till next week for AI, Amazon, Google Cloud, and Azure. And hey, maybe even Oracle, who knows? Check out thecloudpod.net for our newsletter. Join our Slack, message us on socials, or leave a review.
So this week, Google had one of their big events, and I think this is the Android event. Is it not? Google I/O, is that what happened? I'm not up to date enough on Google. You're the Android guy, Jonathan. You tell me.
I have no idea. After the last Google thing I watched with which late night TV show was it? Host.
It looks like Google I/O is next week, actually. So.
I just don't pay attention to that anymore. That was just an embarrassing train wreck. So I pretend I look on my iPhone now.
Well, I know Google announced a ton of features this week in advance of Google I/O. I guess that's kind of weird. I don't know exactly why they're doing this, but they basically announced a new Google book designed for Gemini intelligence. Apparently not learning from Surface and the Copilot Surface that no one bought. So Google is trying now. This new laptop category merges Android and Chrome OS into a single platform with devices expected from Acer, Asus, Dell, HP, and Lenovo this fall. No pricing, of course, announced. The Magic Pointer feature developed with Google DeepMind adds contextual Gemini suggestions directly to the cursor, allowing users to interact with on-screen content like dates, images, and text without switching applications. A new Create Your Widget feature lets users generate custom desktop widgets through natural language prompts, pulling data from Gmail, calendar, and web searches into a single personalized dashboard. And quick access enables direct browsing of phone files from Google Book File Manager without manual transfers, and Android phone apps can be used inline on the laptop without leaving the current workflow. The announcement is primarily a consumer hardware story, but we're still covering it here in the after show. But I mean, none of these features sound great. The Magic Pointer feature, yeah, get your AI out of my pointer.
The whole Aluminum OS is designed to be an AI-centric operating system.
I mean, no one seems to love Copilot on Windows, so like, why do they think they're going to be better at this than others?
Well, I mean, they invented Transformers. They are
did,
ahead of the game. Yeah.
I mean, that's how you can run Android apps on the device is kind of nice, but I mean, Mac does that. You can run Mac, iPad, and iOS apps on your Mac if the developers allowed you to do that. I do it for some apps. So I mean, like in some ways, it's like, okay, you're just doing some feature parity stuff, but I don't know. Like, I don't know who the audience for this is. It's definitely not me. A Chromebook is not me either. So I mean, take that.
Yeah, no, I think this is the start of Google going after Apple. Honestly, the way that.
But I mean, like, you can buy the new MacBook Neo for how much? Like $699. Like, it's some crazy price, and it's a full MacBook. I mean, yes, the specs are horrendous. Like,
it's
the disk space.
8 gig in an iPhone CPU. I don't know. It doesn't sound.
I mean, the
sound
iPhone
great.
CPU is pretty darn good. So I don't know. Yeah, $599 to start on the Hello Neo. So I mean, like, if this thing is not $599 or less, I think I don't know how you compete.
It won't be $599. I don't.
No.
Not the Google branded ones. On like the Pixelbook Chromebook brand were the premium brand, and they let the Asus make the cheaper versions. But I'm imagining it's gonna be like $12.99 or something and up. I would imagine.
I mean, I've always wanted. There was an old Motorola phone back in the day that had a dock that you could plug your phone into, and it would load up like a mini OS. I know that. I think my Pixel does it now, like where if I connect to mouse and keyboard, it becomes like a mini Android OS. I've always wanted something like that like I already carry this supercomputer in my pocket. I want to use it more for like my day-to-day stuff, but then again, I know every time I try to use it, like it just doesn't work in my workflow ever. So like maybe something like this would, but I'm probably not going to spend $1,200 and have to carry another device. At that point, I'd rather buy a new Mac and have a much more powerful machine at that point.
Yeah, I kind of wonder who the market is for this, because it's not going to be schools, because schools won't afford it. They've got their cheap Dell Chromebooks. Is it people going to college? Is it somebody else? I don't know. It's a weird place in the market to be targeting. I don't know if there's a demographic of people who just want an AI integrated Chromebook that happens to run Android apps. I mean, I like the idea of sort of more cohesiveness between desktop and mobile devices, because Chrome OS is kind of, it works. I've never seen it crash, but it's just not thrilling. It's very limited in what you can do, and that's part of why it's so reliable, I guess. We're just not quite sure who's going to be the audience for this, because it's not going to be me.
It's not going to be me either, but I'm intrigued by the idea of it. But
yeah,
I don't know. All right, gentlemen. Well, we'll see if the Google Book breaks any. Maybe we're in 6 months from now. We're like, we want a Google Book, but I don't think that's going to be the case.
Wow. We should start going after vendors to send us stuff to review.
There you go.
Yeah, we've got like 10 or 11 audience members now. Maybe
we have way more
Hi,
than
Mom.
that. We have lots of downloads. I mean, if you are listening here, we'd love you to write a review. It's been a little bit since we've asked, but it is nice if you write an iTunes review or Spotify review or whatever you do listen to the show. We know you're out there. But I mean, I get lots of people pinging me. People hit our Slack up occasionally and ask us questions. We don't really have a great community on Slack. We try to engage everybody, but no one ever ask us questions. We'll talk to you. We'll give you advice.
Or we'll put you at Bolt.
Yeah, or Bolt will tell you. You can ask Bolt
Yeah.
anything. He's there all the time. I should see if anyone's secretly talking to Bolt. I never actually thought about it. Let me know if anybody other than Jonathan, Ryan, or Matt talks to Bolt. Let me know. Maybe there'll be insight into what people are interested in. But we always love feedback, and we're trying to not have so much AI news all the time, but it's hard to do. I mean, some of the other podcasts have actually rebranded to be AI podcasts. I'm like, I don't know if the AI pod makes sense. So
the iPod. Yeah, no.
No, it doesn't roll off the tongue, does it? Yeah, so
it doesn't. I don't know. I mean, I don't mind the AI news mostly. I think there's some crap stuff around it.
I think I hated it originally, and it's kind of grown on me over now that it's getting kind of interesting. I think early days of GPT, you're like, this is just a toy, and then the coding tools going, you're like, okay, this is kind of cool. And now I'm using it every day, and I'm like, this is awesome. I love this. And so I'm intrigued when things come out, but I also. The amount of vaporware that exists in this industry right now on the AI side is crazy. I mean, entire Google Next keynote is mostly vaporware. So, things like that are impactful.
Yeah, it's funny to see, new companies popping up and they're like, AI driven, whatever. And like, well, it's been around for 6 months. Are you really an established enterprise company? I don't think so. I don't know.
Well, you don't think a 6-month-old company has every enterprise, basic high? I'm not gonna say every, but any enterprise features at that point. I feel like most of them barely have SSO set up, and that to me is like level 1 of enterprise. That doesn't even mean you have SCIM. It's just we have SSO integration. We've checked that box. You want to bring your own encryption key? That's not something we can handle.
Mm-hmm.
And didn't Warner say to encrypt everything?
It did. Yeah. I think the news stories that annoy me the most at this point, annoy is probably a bit strong, like the Azure story, migrating this VM into a different type of arbitrary pool. We created this thing that you can put a VM in, and this other thing you can put a VM in, and now we've enabled you to do this thing. And isn't it an amazing feature? Like, no, I really, it shouldn't be. It shouldn't be a thing.
It's a migration tool.
But you shouldn't need a migration tool. The service should be able to evolve underneath you. Like if they want to add those features, add the features.
But it's a completely different. I mean, in this case, it's a completely different service that you're migrating from one to the other. Go back to the AWS example. It's like if they migrated you from launch templates to other way around, launch configuration to launch templates. Those at least had feature parity, and you were growing on one. I don't know that every feature in availability sets also existed in launch template, in scale sets. Now I'm mixing up.
That is the truth about the Amazon one. There was things that you used to
have to stay on it,
have to set in different ways, and then you had to, when you moved over to the launch template, you migrated them over, and then there was new things you had to add in, and that was because of things like different versions of IMDS didn't exist in the old launch way. They exist in launch templates.
You couldn't do hard drives and a bunch of stuff at that point.
An IO2 attachment versus non-IO2, and all those things that kind of change over time. So it makes sense that it does change. And if you didn't create something in the early days as something dynamic and scalable and changeable, then making a new thing makes sense. But again, I just don't know how hard it is to switch. But here we are.
It's a problem that didn't have to exist, though.
It didn't.
Feel like as a customer, I have an intent, and I want them to execute on my intent. The fact that they require me to do a launch configuration or a launch template or some other kind of choice or box they're going to put me in, that's just a limitation of their service. But my intent is the same either way. So,
I mean,
why do I have to do work?
I wonder if we're complaining about the tip of the iceberg, and how many things have they magically solved for us under the hood that we don't even know? As I mix metaphors in that statement. Like how many different things have they just solved and, for example, done that migration that you're talking about, moved off of the old Intel processor to a new Intel processor because they wanted to decommission the server. That rack, like maybe they just do all of it for us. I'm not sure.
Well, I mean, that's a good example. Amazon didn't live migrate VMs off of hosts. You used to get a maintenance notice, and nobody ever paid attention to them because it was very obscure. And then your machine will go down, and there'll be an outage, and you're like, "Oh yes, we really should do something with these maintenance notices." But other clouds would live migrate things, and it's just like lots of the examples of things where their choices just lead to complication. I don't know. I don't want to have to worry about VMs. I don't want to have to worry about these logical
Then go completely serverless
services and constructs and everything else. Yeah, I mean, but I think AI, though, to circle back to the thing that that we're rebranding to.
We digress, never.
I think with AI, though, you will be in a position to specify your intent without the implementation, and as long as the intent stays the same, and the outcomes stay the same, how it's implemented in the middle is becoming less and less important. So I think there'll be many less of these stories about you can do this random little thing now, or you can migrate for this thing. I think that a lot of this stuff will just happen seamlessly. So
fair.
I mean, I'm just even thinking I was talking with somebody the other day about ELBs versus ALBs. And I'm like, but there's some things that are fundamental changes that I think, even what you're saying, you still would have to say to whatever the AI is, hey, go check to make sure you're doing it the best way and go do this thing, or put a loop or whatever on, because what is correct today and the best practices and the most logical and cost effective, whatever today, in a year is most likely not the most cost-effective and best way to do it anymore. Well, or you might have business requirements to change, but let's assume that that's not a variable. So like you need some sort of loop, and then if you are making changes to something, it should go up your proper SDLC for infrastructure changes also.
Infrastructure changes, though. I don't know. Is it infrastructure?
So go use Beanstalk. Go back to Beanstalk. Here's your app code. Go run it.
I'm still horrified that when I talked to the Beanstalk PM, he's like, it's the #1 service in all of Amazon. I'm like, what? How is that possible? So we make fun of it.
I can see why.
I know a few production customers that use it for production. So I advise one of them.
It's crazy to me.
And it works for him.
Yeah, I mean, I guess it's the easy button in a lot of ways. I mean, it's why people like Vercel as well. I don't understand that, but if you're really into doing front end web design, Vercel does the work. So it is what it is.
Yeah, Vercel or Cloudflare workers and things like that. It's just so easy to use. It's what application development and deployment should look like.
Mm-hmm. I mean, it's what it's kind of where we always wanted, platform services to get to, and now, it's being offered as a service. So it makes sense. But all right, gentlemen, I got to run, but good catching up as always.
Yep. See you later.
Bye.